What if I told you that the mystery Paul talks about in Romans 11 was actually revealed all the way back in Genesis 48? In Genesis 48:19, Jacob prophesies something over Ephraim that we have to slow down and learn the Hebrew language in order to understand. He says his descendants shall become a fullness of nations. In Hebrew, that phrase is Melo HaGoyim. Melo means fullness, Goyim means nations. Ephraim will become a fullness of nations. That phrase should sound familiar to you. Abraham was told that he would be a father of many nations. Jacob was told a company of nations would come from him. And now that promise is being continued through Ephraim. Ephraim literally means doubly fruitful. Just like Joseph's blessing in Genesis 49, his branches run over the wall. Through this blessing, Ephraim becomes the vehicle through which Israel's inheritance expands. And that fullness is clarified in Romans 11. When Paul writes in Romans 11, he says something very, very, very specific. First of all, he says, I do not want you to be ignorant of this mystery. He says a partial hardening has happened to Israel until the fullness of the nations has come in. In Greek, that phrase is pleromaton ethnon. It means fullness of nations. That is the exact same phrase as Melo HaGoyim in Genesis 48. In fact, when Genesis was translated into Greek in the Septuagint, it uses the same vocabulary Paul later uses in Romans 11. Paul is pulling directly from that pattern. Genesis 48 is the shadow, Romans 11 is the reality. In Genesis, Ephraim is adopted and brought into inheritance. In Romans, the nations are grafted into the olive tree. In Genesis, Ephraim and Manasseh receive full status as sons. In Romans, the nations partake of the same root. This is why Paul calls it a mystery, because unless you understand the pattern, you won't understand the process. The fullness of nations Paul is talking about is the unfolding of Ephraim's birthright promise through Messiah, in which through him, the inheritance is expanded. This is not saying that the nations become Ephraim. No, it's explaining the shadow of adoption that now extends to all those who become grafted into the olive tree, which is only made possible through our Messiah. Once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. What Jacob prophesied over Ephraim in Genesis 48 was always pointing forward to a greater expansion of covenant inheritance through Messiah.